Okay, seems like we are live. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Non-Fungible Rebels podcast. Today, I'm talking to Snax. We met, I think it was 3 years ago, right, in San Diego at the crypto business conference. We were both speaking there, and then it was a really nice experience. We met awesome people in there. It was really nice conference, and yeah, that's when of course, I had heard about you before that, but that's the first time we actually met each other in real life and had some conversations. So it was really awesome. I can't imagine you without that vest. So for those who are watching, I always imagine snacks with lots of pockets, and we have to talk about what you actually keep in each of them. But that would be a long podcast if we could dive into that. But yeah, welcome to the show, snacks. Thanks for finally making it. We've been planning this for quite a long time.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad we kept at it. And I have 32 pockets, and I
Oh
actually
dear.
have a slide, a Google slide doc that just has the contents that I tweeted a while back, so anyone can see what I'm keeping in the pockets.
Oh wow. Okay, cool. So I'll make sure that I share the link to that slide deck in the show notes for people to check it out. But yeah, I mean it's very impressive, I would say. So okay, so let's dive into your story from the very beginning. We all have different paths that led us to this space, and I'm curious about yours because I know that you've been in the space for quite a long time, way longer than many of us. So how did you end up here?
So in 2011, I was spending a lot of time in the internet, and I remember LulzSec hacked Sony. And they were this hacker crew that they were pretty funny, and I remember they started accepting donations in Bitcoin, and I read about it. I looked at the white paper, and I was like, ah, it's a currency backed by math. I'm in. So I started buying at about 20 bucks, hopping money into Mt. Gox, uh, and then I would just have eureka moments every few months or years, like, oh wow, Bitcoin. It's really happening. And then years later, I was organizing events, local meetups for the Bitcoin community, and then one of my co-organizers brought me to this historic auction in 2018 in January, where the Homer Pepe sold for like 300K. I was in the audience. I'm actually in that doc. You can see me like in the background in the audience, just like with my South Philly pom pom hat on, and and I was hooked. So because I met Matt Hall from CryptoPunks and Joe Looney from Pepe Wallet and Bea from Dada. I saw her and a bunch of other people speak. Mac from CryptoKitties, I think he called in. So immediately NFT pilled. January 2018, went home, bought CryptoPunks, hung out in the CryptoPunks Discord for years, um, building a Tulip NFT that we say will launch every spring and don't, and the bubble hasn't popped yet. We're just waiting. No. And so yeah, and then Pizza DAO came out of Clubhouse actually. So in late 2020, my friend from South Philly onboarded me to Clubhouse, and I started teaching people about NFTs because the CryptoPunks Discord knew more about NFTs than anybody back then, and I had just been hanging out there, so I knew a lot. And Pizza DAO came in like February of 21 after hanging out on Clubhouse for months. I was running this room called the Room About Nothing, and we decided we wanted to make this pizza NFT, and came out of this room one day because, well, so I've been talking about Pizza DAO for like a while, talking about onboarding small businesses to the blockchain on Clubhouse, and no one really cared that much. And so I packaged that more as Pizza DAO, and people started to get the idea of bringing the world on chain through like pizzerias. And then yeah, so we kind of Clubhouse accelerated us really quickly, and we came out of there. We built a Discord community. We moved most of the community over to Twitter when everyone else did, and here we are, 4 years later, four global pizza parties. We're throwing four conference events a month almost now, like two to four regularly.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, which is
That's
wild.
It is wild. Yeah. I mean, you touched on so many points. I think like we have to go back and kind of, probably discuss it one by one, and we'll get to the pizza dough. Absolutely. We'll have to cover that for sure. But from the very beginning, like, you mentioned, from the NFT side, like, the CryptoPunks. And I remember that back in those days, they didn't I mean, they were free, and they didn't even kind of, people were not even claiming those, right? Like, it was just out there for quite a while. Yeah, and many were just kind of, could go out there and get hundreds and hundreds of them, right, if they wanted to. Like, there wasn't even limitation per wallet.
Like Mr.
So how
703.
yeah, so how did you discover those, and how did you see? Because I think that back then it was too early, and people didn't really not many grasped that whole concept of why they were valuable, and what was behind it, and the whole kind of idea behind it. So how did you actually ended up being among the few who saw what it was?
Well, so I was there January 2018. January 18th was this Rare AF auction in New York that my Bitcoin Philadelphia co-organizer Jason, he brought me to this event. And I saw Matt Hall speak. So I saw these punks and I saw all the early NFT projects at once in one day. Like, so lucky, right? And the punks really spoke to me. I mean, they were 24 by 24 pixel images that were recognizable at really small scales. That were, there's something about pixel art where you can kind of hit the ideal version of a representation of something within the
Hmm.
space. Like there's, and that really appealed to me as an artistic um, challenge, right? And I felt like they had done a good job. Um, and so I went home and they were like $100 and I browsed the marketplace for a little bit. I joined the Discord and I bought like 12, I think, for $100 each. And I felt kind of silly but I liked them and I liked the community. They were weird, they were funny, they were very knowledgeable. And I like the marketplace. It's really nice. It's like well designed. It's uh it's elegant. It's the whole CryptoPunks collection I just felt was really elegantly executed. And so I just, buying a JPEG for $100 felt silly, but I liked them, and so I was happy. And then I eventually I just kept buying more because I liked them so much, and I got like the punk that in the collection that looked the most like me out of all 10,000, which is in one of my pockets. It's the sticker. This is the guy.
Yeah.
Although I've since upgraded to Noggles, but um, here I'll show off my Noggles for the visual audience.
There you
Um,
go. There you go.
but yeah, and the punks community, they built a lot of the stuff that's out there today, right? A lot of the
Yeah.
projects and culture and education and people who have been onboarded came from punks.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. And I think, the good thing about the core community of punks from the early days who are still around is that, and everyone I spoke to, like, none of them actually mentioned that they came to it for the money, although like eventually, most of them are did a very good kind of sales afterwards. But back in those days, I'm sure no one even thought that that's what it would happen at that scale. So it was way about way more and more different things rather than just the financial gains that people came from, which is why the culture was probably so pure, and the environment and the experience was so much nicer, rather than when all these 10K PFPs came in later on, years afterwards, where the whole thing became about speculations, right? So it was a different thing. You also mentioned Clubhouse. I do remember the time when Clubhouse came out, and it was like invite only, the early days of the Clubhouse. And it also obviously, it did so well because it was the COVID lockdown, and everyone was so bored and so kind of worried, and everyone was looking for distractions. So it brought everyone together, and the NFTs kind of that topic was very hot back in the days. I do remember that those rooms were full of people, curious people, artists, creatives who were looking into the space a lot. So how was the experience there in general? I mean, we both know that eventually most of the crowd moved to Twitter Spaces afterwards. It didn't really last too long, but did you end up sort of, obviously we'll talk about the pizza DAO, and that, you already mentioned that the Clubhouse accelerated the process of launching it. But in general, like that whole phenomenon of Clubhouse, and the curious people, and quote unquote onboarding people to the NFT space, how did that work specifically? Because everyone talks so much about onboarding and the challenges related to that, but I feel like it wasn't that hard back in those days when people were doing it through Clubhouse.
I think it was timing. It was the perfect timing, and it was an intersection of the debut of social audio, the mainstreaming of NFTs, and really lockdown. I mean, lockdown accelerated social audio and NFTs, because why wouldn't you lean into the metaverse when you can't go anywhere
Yeah.
outside, like in the physical world? Made a lot of sense. So, and social audio, same thing. I think everyone was starved for interaction, for companionship, for friends, um, and social audio is still really popular. And the metaverse, maybe I like the metaverse, so I think ultimately it will stay relevant. But um, yeah, it was a time and a place, and NFTs were this way to broadcast yourself on this world where you were building friends on, like, we started wearing our punks on Clubhouse, and there are a lot of people on Clubhouse talking about things they really don't know anything about. And this is true everywhere. And so I think PFPs became important there because you would join rooms and there were so many people just saying nonsense or promoting bad stuff. Or so I think a CryptoPunk became this symbol of, okay, like maybe this person knows what they're talking about, or they're faking what their punk is, and if they get popular enough, then someone's going to be like, hey, that's not yours, or something like that. And
Mm.
I feel like that fed into the development of the whole PFP culture.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can relate. I think it's kind of people do like talking about stuff that they don't know, because it's very easy to impress people if you say stuff that you don't know with a very big confidence, and kind of you behave a bit arrogantly, and kind of just that whole behavior misleads people. And if it's about a topic that they don't really know much about, then deceiving them that way is very easy. So there were loads of opportunists coming into the Clubhouse, having that platform, having that attention, that crowd, and just coming and kind of faking it until they make it, right, and growing their audience that way. And if it's a topic that is really new and not very well yet researched, and people people are just, curious about it, but have no clue about any of that stuff. Whatever that person says kind of, seems to make sense, right? So it's very tricky to, and it's still the same here, in our space, in the Web3 space in general. It's still the same, right? When new people come in, it's so hard for them to understand, who to pick, who to believe, who are the people who actually know what they are talking about. So yeah, the PFP kind of, that punk PFPs brought in that proof that, these people have been around for quite a while. These people kind of, it was a bit of a badge of reputation and a bit of a quality thing as well, because most, as you said, most of the punks were very knowledgeable and kind of, very educated people, so they did know what they were talking about for sure. So yeah, it completely makes sense. So Pizza DAO, you mentioned that the Clubhouse kind of accelerated the whole movement, and it happened organically, I presume, just, through the power of the community. I love these kind of stories because I'm a big advocate of communities, and I'm a big advocate of kind of, that whole organic, accidental sort of things that were meant to happening because several people got together and had a dream and decided to go for it, right? So what was the origin story of that Pizza DAO thing? I know that you had it in your mind, but like, that whole, what was the thing that triggered the movement? How did you meet the right people to join you and do it together?
So I built this. I mean, I was building a circle of friends on Clubhouse
Mm-hmm.
by educating people about NFTs and then by hanging out with people I liked. And I was running this room called the Room About Nothing, where it was sort of a refuge from all the shills and poor takes, bad takes that were out there. Uh, and we would mod the whole room, so it was really chaotic and fun. And like people would come in, they'd take over the room, and it was very DAO, I think, in the vibe where like anyone could sort of derail or do anything they wanted, ban people, change um yeah, we would have the room taken over frequently and get like lectured by teenagers from some country who thought they were being so funny, and then we just make a new room because space is free on the metaverse relatively, or in the metaverse, on Clubhouse. So and I guess the first place this came from was I run a Facebook group in South Philly called South Silly that
Mm-hmm.
has 16,000 members today. And um, I watched during the lockdown as my neighborhood suffered because I know a lot of the local businesses, I know a lot of people, and I saw places close and struggle, and that made me really intent on figuring out how to apply this crypto stuff to improve the state of local communities. So that was where, like, and I would talk about tokenizing these businesses and bringing their accounting online, on chain, so that it could be compliant, right? You could actually invest as a community member in these small businesses and have transparency through the finances. And we're not close to being able to accomplish that today. And we were way further then. So that was not really catchy. I don't think people were super excited. Like, I think, but the idea um, for me moved into being about pizzerias because pizza is this global thing,
Yep.
and it's this, it's like the best, the best known food in the known universe, right? It's, if there's any food, it's probably, it's pizza. It's everywhere, and it's aesthetic, and it's shareable. Like, it just has so many wonderful qualities as a food.
And
It's
everyone loves
simple.
it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's simple. It has so many great characterizations in media. It has the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are, love
True.
pizza. Like, all of these people really, pizza connects uh, the world, and so, and this was a time when we all needed connection, I think, right? So
Yep.
So I think there was something about that that started to connect. And then I was running the room about nothing one morning, and this woman Monica came in, and Hash Masks had just launched, and she was like, "Oh, we should do, we should do a pizza NFT like the Hash Mask, where no one really knew who the artists were of the Hash Mask, but everyone thought it was
Mm.
like a bunch of people who had contributed stuff." And so the idea was to make a pizza where a bunch of people contributed toppings. So we made a spreadsheet and started signing people up for toppings, 100 toppings. And the room, I changed the name of the room. It was called the Room About Nothing, and then I changed it to the Room About Pizza, and then changed it to Pizza plus blockchain equal, or Pizza plus Web3 equals free pizza, or something like that. Um, as we were talking about, like, what would we do with the funds from the NFT, which was coming from this idea of like moving, if if Bitcoin is, if purchasing that pizza with Bitcoin in 2010, Laszlo was the
Mm.
first on May 22nd, right? He moved kind of digital money into the physical world for the first time. And so we were like, how do we accelerate this? We need to take digital money and make more pizza. So let's sell these NFTs, and then what are we gonna do with the money? Well, we're gonna buy pizza, because uh, because we can actually tie this cryptocurrency to pizza in a way that stocks and currencies maybe haven't historically been. You pump. It was around GameStop and AMC, and it was like you pump these
Mm.
things, and Dogecoin, right? And you don't get more video
Yeah.
games or more movies or more dogs, and we were like, well, guess what? We're gonna sell these NFTs, and if you pump these pizza NFTs, we're gonna buy pizza, and we have. We have bought like over $1 million worth of pizza. Um, so so that was the I think what got people really excited. This whole idea of, like, I mean, throwing a global pizza party. It was first just like we're gonna buy pizza, and it crystallized into being a global pizza party. Um, And along the way, we signed up 314 artists to do toppings because there was so much demand, and it just happened really quickly. And let me tell you, it's a lot of artists to organize.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's like, artists are not the most organized crowd.
No,
And
no.
if you put them all together and try to organize something with 300 plus artists, I can imagine how challenging that may be. For sure.
So yeah, so we bit off, a lot, but this community that was on Clubhouse, that we were all friends and we knew each other, and people I wasn't friends with, like, their friends brought them in,
Mm.
and and our Discord quickly had hundreds of members, and I mean, we went from, I started talking about Pizza Dow in January. The community really kicked off February 18th, was the day that I ran the room about nothing that became the room about pizza. And March 15th, we launched our NFT. Now, it wasn't the full pizza with all the toppings, because we had to organize 314 artists and get them to submit toppings, but we did have 100 pizza boxes that we sold that contained the promise of the NFT pizza. And and we sold those on March 15th. We raised like over 300 ETH.
Wow.
And yeah, and then 2 months later, on May 22nd, we spent about 300 grand on pizza in a day, all over the world. And it was actually lockdown, so this was not parties and events. This was direct to pizzerias. So we literally would call up pizzerias and say, "Hey, we want you to give away $625 a pizza." Actually, we'd say $500 a pizza, and we'll tip you 125 on top for the trouble, because giving away pizza is not, it's not necessarily obvious or easy all the time. Uh, and yeah, so 2 months from, you know, the Twitter space that kind of started. Now the community was there. We had this substrate, right? We had this network to build on. And PizzaDAO has similarly, like, we built on the crypto community, right? We built on top of the Ethereum meetup communities and the blockchain
Yeah.
meetup communities. And so as we built our global network, right, and I think communities can kind of do this, you can like just build on top of other communities and then they can build on top of you, and it's like this positive sum,
Hmm.
ever expanding
Yeah.
network of people who know each other and can help each other navigate relationships with each other, right? It's like, when I introduce to somebody and I really know them both, I can tell them both the things that are important for them to have a good interaction.
No. Yeah. No, I think it's really nice, and I've been I believe the NFT UK had the pizza party as well together with you guys, right? So I remember those, seeing those as well, and it's kind of, it's, I think it's important to have that physical element as well, because the crypto community is online most of the time. We end up becoming friends with people we've never met in real life, and kind of, putting that together, and eventually at one point getting together and looking at each other's eyes, and kind of, interacting in real world, and making it feel kind of, more grounded, is, I think it's very important. And when you get together and we also share drinks and food as well, it gives it another level of kind of, closeness, right? So I feel like that whole thing is very interesting. I just want to sort of, understand the connection. I mean, you started with that whole idea that didn't resonate in the very beginning for helping, like, small businesses. Eventually those small businesses turned into pizzerias, pizza businesses. So at the moment, like, bringing those businesses to the ecosystem, and having them kind of, use cryptocurrencies maybe, or get, like, does it have that element at all, the pizza DAO, or it's more towards the other direction? Like, how does that work?
Pizzerias are interested. So the way we build our community with them is that, well, first of all, we're buying a ton of pizza all the time. So we're doing events regularly
Yeah.
in cities all over the world, and every time we buy pizza from a place, we're telling them who we are, what we're doing, and what is that. So the listeners don't know, like, what is pizza actually doing beyond throwing these parties. And the goal is building a global pizza co-op, and the first thing we're doing on that line is uh, building a relationship with these pizzerias and then buying real estate together.
Oh
Okay.
wow. Okay.
So the idea is that the number one thing that causes many small businesses to fail is their landlord. So it would be better if they were partially their own landlord and they had a really friendly landlord like Pizza Dow, who would be a really friendly landlord for pizzerias, as well as with the model. We actually want their local community to buy in with the pizzeria, and then Pizza Dow will buy, the rest with our like global community of crypto people. Um, so pizzerias are interested in that, and they understand now, wanting to be their own landlord, and many of them are renting. So, so that's a pretty clear pitch. And then beyond that, um, just the idea of building a global co-op. They talk about aligning independent pizzerias in that industry, and it's just not easy. And the blockchain is alignment technology. So when we can make a DAO that's a pizza DAO, and we can align these businesses potentially by having them all hold this token ultimately, um, then they can build technology together. And I think it's important that it's open source technology, and they can really feel confident that they can build on top of that. Kind of similarly to owning their real estate, maybe they should own their software too, at least to the
Mm.
extent that they can. So that was really appealing. And then the other reason the real estate makes a lot of sense for us is that everyone knows the story of McDonald's. And I'm wearing a McDonald's badge. I keep
I
bending
was
to so the mirror.
I
Yeah.
was gonna mention that, because yeah, that's kind of very aligned with the real estate part of it. Yes,
Yes. So
absolutely.
so everyone's seen The Founder. It's a great movie. I have the book it's based on actually. God, it's right here. I haven't actually started yet. I'm about to read it. And that is a really well-known story. Everyone knows McDonald's is a real estate company. It's that offers burger solutions, and so why can't Pizza Now be the same thing? But we can do it in a decentralized way, where we're not taking over the brand. We're just providing the infrastructure. And for also REITs really make sense. Real estate investment trust. This is a tried and true investment vehicle that people have done. So we realize that it's so easy for Pizza Now to do stuff like that. We don't even have to do it crypto in some territories. We'll do it as crypto as we can, where and when we can, and gradually transition everything in that direction. But we can build community, build relationships with pizzerias, scout real estate, and then use our global community together to buy the real estate without
Mm.
any new tech, honestly, beyond our relationship building technology, which is,
Yeah.
a little bit of Discord, a little bit Google, a little bit
Well,
of
no,
crypto.
I like what you mentioned because, like, I feel like people in this space are very, very focused on the technology side of it and, like, kind of, make the technology the hero of the whole story. But to me, like, there is so much human side to this. And, like, not always, not in all different stages and elements of the story, you need to embed the technology at any step, right? So sometimes, artificially putting in the technology behind it, it just overcomplicates stuff. So it needs to be there when it actually needs to be there, right? So very often, many projects have a token, but they shouldn't really have a token. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really have the, like, organic natural utility. It's just kind of made up, and that's when it backfires and stuff like that. So I like the fact that you're kind of, mixing those real life kind of, things with the technology only when it's necessary, and then detaching from it when it's not, when it doesn't make sense. That's, I think, really beautiful. I want to go back to the rare pizzas collection, NFT collection, because I think, like, very often when you launch a collection or launch a token and or NFT in this particular case, there is a certain pressure in terms of expectations and, the floor prices and kind of, the speculative potential of the thing, etc., right? And usually it happens when, there is no specific mission or a purpose behind it. That's when it happens, because then, the money is the only kind of, reasoning behind it. In your case, like, did you have any pressure like that, or were, like, all people who gathered around this thing were kind of people who were focusing on the mission and the purpose behind it? Like, how did that work? Because there aren't many purpose driven projects out there. So I presume in your case it must have been different.
I think our community was very purpose driven, and the buyers, I I mean, I think many were happy to contribute and maybe didn't see it as a speculative thing. Also, the way we launched was, so we launched with a price ramp, just like the hash masks did, but ours was actually really steep. And so it just kind of stopped around zero point 0.3 ETH, I think. And then ultimately we voted, market conditions changed. We were always a step behind with our NFT, right? So we did the price ramp right before Bored Ape came out with the flat zero point
Mm.
zero 0.08. And then we had this whole community discussion, which did actually alienate some collectors, where it was just, we can't sustain this price ramp that we have, and so we need to transition to a flat mint like Bored Ape did, and like every project is doing. And so we went through a big governance struggle with this, and talked it out as a
Yeah.
community, and we settled on zero point zero 0.08, and then we launched at zero point zero 0.08, and right when we did that, everyone transitioned to free mints, and that was the meta. And
Oh
then,
dear. Yeah.
and then later it became shit coins, and so but so yeah, so I think that contributed to how maybe our token never brought on those kind of speculator investors that might be toxic, or really disruptive, or just talk a lot of crap on the timeline about the project. So yeah, and it's still not sold out. They're still available for point oh 0.08, and people mint them every now and then, and I think they see it. The people who are minting are those who are in the community, and they're minting it because, like, the two people who minted it recently are pizza out party hosts, and partners, like, who, you know, one is, he's Wayne. He knows our friend in New Orleans who helped contribute code to the NFT. Ryan, who helps run this awesome community space in New Orleans. So there's this deep network that is causing people to want to actually mint our NFT at this point, where, if and when, I just don't really see us having the same sort of problem.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that's usually when things actually happen at a deeper level, is when, when the project is about something else and not the money itself. So the money is not the thing that they hype and the thing that they promise, right? Like, you're going to get rich quick is how many projects attract people, and then, they end up with the quality of those people that they attracted, kind of, becoming the problem eventually. So greed is a really good motivator, and it works, and it's kind of, it seems to be the classic marketing in this space. But yeah, but I don't think that the long term it actually makes sense at all if you're gonna build something and be around for much longer than just kind of, a cycle or so. So yeah, it totally makes sense. Okay,
And people
so at
ask
some
us to do stuff. They ask us, like, "Do you want? Oh, support this shitcoin. Do this, do that." And it's just like, no way. Like, we've built this amazing community. Like, we've built this thing. We've put so much love into building, like, who we are, what we are. We would never just sell out for some, like, some crappy cash grab kind of a thing. It's just not.
No,
Yeah.
and it's kind of, the trust, losing trust, building trust takes a long time, but losing it just takes a few seconds. So, like,
Yes.
you would lose your trust with your community with the first shield of a shitcoin that you will make, right? It's just kind of, that's how it works. You would
Of
not be able
course.
to turn things back anymore. So that shield is going to cost you a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm totally with you. It's just not worth it at all. And it's kind of, that's if a project needs that kind of promotion, then in my head it shouldn't even exist, because it means that there is no community behind it, and if there is no community behind it, then people don't really need it. So why does it even exist, right? So I don't think they should be even around. So yeah, I'm with you there for sure. Like, I've never shielded a shitcoin and don't really plan doing it anytime soon. So yeah, totally with you there. So what was I going to ask? I lost my train of thought. But oh yeah, so at the moment, like, you've been in this space since quite a long time, like from 2011 you mentioned until now, and I've been way less, like, I think probably 6 7 years, and I've seen so much, and it has changed so many times. It changes all the time, but at the same time the same thing repeats over and over again, just with the different flavors. How do you feel about the space? Like, how much has it changed from the beginning, from when you started getting into it until now? And does it feel better or worse?
It's way better. There are so many more awesome people around. I mean, in the beginning, it was me in, in my room on my computer on the Bitcoin Talk forums, and selling people Bitcoin for cash on Craigslist just to onboard the locals. That was that was not a big me. So that was 2011, and that didn't change that much. I mean, until like 2012, 2013, I started organizing meetups, and maybe 20, 30 people would come to 30th Street Station in Philadelphia and push tables together in the public space outside the Pizza Hut. And we would talk about DAOs and Dogecoin when it launched, and crypto. And we didn't really understand. We thought DAOs were like taxi cabs that own themselves. We weren't realizing that humans are the hands and feet of DAOs. Yet Um, but yeah, and then it shifted again in. So I wasn't really paying attention when ETH launched in 2017, but I think that shifted the energy certainly because I had been
Mm.
running the crypto, like the Bitcoin meetup, and actually I remember 2014. Here's a step along the way. I went to the North American Bitcoin conference in Chicago, and I was dressed like this, and I saw, I was wearing my vest back then as well, and the suits were starting to come in, and
Mm.
I just thought it was so funny to be at this conference. I'd been buying Bitcoin at $20 in 2011. This is 2014. I don't know, Bitcoin is maybe in the hundreds or thousands. I'm not sure. And the suits are starting to come, and I see the bankers. Chicago's a banking city, and they're all there, and I just was so tickled by it. I remember Charlie Shrem was there on a Segway telepresence screen, like an iPad on top of a Segway, which I don't know why people don't use more at the conferences. I would love to see more iPads rolling around with people attending conferences remotely. Or like Twitch Plays Conference. Can you imagine someone making that where you could just like control a bot that would go around and network for some crowd of people watching? Anyway, um, yeah. So that was a
Yeah.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that conferences need so much improvement these days. It's like, it's there is a lot that could be done for conferences to become a way better experience that they are at the moment, for sure.
So I met some of the people who were starting to build, more corporate products and startups and banking stuff. And then for me, it shifted again in 2018, right when I got onboarded to NFTs, and that really brought artists in, which is it's just a huge game changer for the ecosystem to have people who make culture around. Whereas it was before, it was nerds, it was libertarians, it was drug dealers, it was um, people interested in. It's always been rebels. So this is NFT rebels. Like it's always been people who wanted
Yeah.
to change the world, I think, have been attracted to this stuff. And that's pretty powerful. And it's been a huge wealth transfer to those people of in effect, right? That's who bought this stuff in the early days, and that's who has benefited from it. And I really enjoy watching what they spend it on, and I'm really hopeful for the stuff they'll spend it on.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy that artists joined the community as well because I think we needed more sort of, human and soulful influx into the space, as you mentioned, and I think that was kind of the NFT hype cycle, kind of contributed to the fact that the technology was kind of about the narrative started becoming about the human stuff, about things that everyone cared about. So it was much easier for people to understand NFTs because they were about emotional things. They were about things that were kind of overall like human things that everyone understood and valued. They were about culture, about music, about arts, about things that everyone understands. You don't need to be speaking a certain language to get that, right? And then the technology was behind those things, so it was easier to kind of bring in the people who valued that stuff as part of their lives, right? So and then they were curious enough to figure out what it was all about, and eventually kind of understood the basics of the technology behind it. But I think they brought a new diverse perspective to the space. But also NFTs enabled us to get exposure for the types of the arts that we were not able to see otherwise. Like all these gatekeepers were keeping that non-commercial, non-accepted genres and formats and kind of topics away from us. And now like the gates were open and we saw so many things, right? As a consumers, we ended up like getting overwhelmed with the diversity of all these things we didn't even know existed. So I think that part was very beautiful, and I still believe that it's one of the best things that happened to the space.
Yes, absolutely. Art is, I mean, why, what do people live for, right? Most people, when they have free time, they want to do something art, they want to consume art or they want to create art or they want to, do. I like to just improve spreadsheet. No, just I do, but we all like different things. And I think but art is a great way to improve the environment. I feel around you, and I feel like that's improving oneself and one's surroundings. That seems like the most exciting stuff to be pursuing most of the time, and art is essential to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Talking about communities, like, apart from Pizza DAO, like, I'm always in search for genuine, really authentic kind of, good communities to be part of in this space, because, like, there are too many things to look into, and we have all these alpha chats and shitcoin kind of communities that all have hidden agendas, lots of like different kind of motives and all that stuff. And then there are loads of other communities that are kind of a bit of underground and kind of hidden and not very loud, very kind of visible, because they want to stay within their own kind of closed groups, etc. um, which communities are really good ones that you really enjoy being part of, apart from the pizza DAO?
I think the Nounish community is great, and it's pretty widespread. There are a lot of different Nounish communities within NounStyle, so there's something for it. Like I'm in a coffee one, I'm in a weed one, I'm in a builder one, I'm in I'm sure I'm in a couple others. I'm in the food one, I'm in the little one. I have Noun 292, which is the Wee Pizza Noun. And I think that community, Nouns Amigos, I think do an amazing job in Latam building community. So I think big, you know, there's just a big opportunity to make friends in that ecosystem. Then the ETH meetup scene, I think, is really good. Like what ETH Global does and what these ETH Denver does and ECC and all of these meetup organizers do. I think those are great communities to be involved in. Kernel, which is sort of like came out of Gitcoin, I would say, and is a kernel.community, it's a fellowship that people can do. I think that's a really great network for people to get involved in. Um, and I mean, I think every NFT can have a value to the right person. So depending upon what it is that a given person cares about, I think different NFTs specialize in connecting you to different types of people. So if you want to meet founders, executives, technologists, pioneers, like maybe a CryptoPunk is the type of community you want to like make a wager that the people will like you in. Um, which I think is kind of how a lot of these NFT communities function, right? You're buying this thing as um, like you're staking some money to say, okay, pay attention to me for a bit, everyone, and let's have a chat. And hopefully you get some value out of that and you make some friends and relationships that are valuable. So maybe that's why, or a board ape maybe is good for someone who wants to make IP stuff or make consumer goods. Maybe the doodles are good for animators and the sappy seals are good for other stuff. So I think there is value, like Pudgies, I think are great for people who want to make consumer IP kind of stuff and games. And, they're specializing in, if you want to make plushies, like get a Pudgy, learn how they're making the plushies. So. I think every community can specialize there, and that's interesting. But I wouldn't speculate necessarily on those. I would buy in, and if I'm buying in, I would buy for. You should really like, don't buy a CryptoPunk if you're not gonna really take advantage of owning a CryptoPunk to get some value out of it, or um, I mean, or if you want to have a CryptoPunk as part of your art collection, I guess that's another thing. But there are just all sorts of little communities all across the ecosystem. Like I think joining NFT communities on chains you want to learn about is a really good way. Like joining like we have friends at the Solarians, right, on Solana, and everything I know about Solana, I know from my friend, who's Vincent, who's part of the Solarians and who runs that community. So um, find, if you're interested in a chain, or like, or my friend Alan, who the had a CryptoPunk, was one of those who popularized CryptoPunk PFPs on Clubhouse back in the day. He has always tells me, buy a bad kit, to learn the Cosmos ecosystem. So I think um, yeah, there are good reasons to buy some of those, but you have to really have a reason. You have to have a rationale.
Yeah. No, no, no. It totally makes sense because it's as all these cycles showed, it's kind of, you can't really control the price movements. You can't predict the price movements. I know that many people who have done well claim that it's because they are smart. When they are not doing well, they claim it's because the market and not themselves. But in reality, like no one really knows shit about this stuff. So like, if you are really buying it as an investment or kind of a speculative tool for making money, I don't think like it's up to luck more than anything else. I don't really believe all these people who are going back to people who don't know what they're talking about, who are like, with a serious expression of their faces, share all these charts and these lines with technical analysis on a meme coin or stuff like that. It's just, doesn't make sense to me. But to each its own, right? Some people truly enjoy the legend communities because let's give them a credit. It's fun. Like, if not anything else, it's really fun. Even observing them from a side is pretty fun as well. So yeah, but definitely, like, I wouldn't really recommend, kind of using that and having the reason to get into it as making money per se, because you don't know, you never know, you may get lucky but you may not as well, so it doesn't really matter. But if you approach it from the perspective with the approach that you mentioned, then regardless the floor price, regardless what the price of the thing is, you you made friends, so you're already doing well, right? You are part of the community that you really like the experience of being in, and kind of going back to over and over again, so that's already good enough. So I feel like when there is something else apart from the money, in situations where you can't make money, you're still gaining something, and there's still kind of it's still a good deal. At least that's how I look at it. So yeah, definitely.
It's
um
like the safest way to speculate on NFTs is to speculate on yourself within that
yeah.
community. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's again going back to the whole communities and human side of it, and the culture and the art. I think that's the true value of this space, right? So, you mentioned rebels. Like, rebels are usually very misunderstood people, right? It's very rare when a real rebel has like-minded people around him in their real lives, among the family, among the friends. Usually you're like the weird one that kind of is different and all that stuff. Here, like, all these rebels had a chance to meet like-minded people, to realize that, oh my god, like, I'm not as rare as I thought I was. Like, there's so many other rebels out there, and I have a chance to meet them and to spend time with them, and to discuss things that are actually interesting for us, but like not really interesting to the people that we spend our real lives with, right, at work or at home or whatever. So I think that's the biggest value of things, kind of bringing together the people who actually think similarly, very different to the social norms, but like similarly to each other. So that's very valuable. So yeah, so I guess I'm very cautious about your time because we had some hiccups in the beginning, so I won't take too much of it. I guess to wrap this up, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you could tell how you envision this space to move from now onwards. Like, not, I know that predictions are kind of like it doesn't work. It's always an unexpected thing. But like, maybe what are your hopes for it? Like, what are you expecting from this space to evolve at a later stage?
Hmm. I hope that we use this technology to bring plenty to our planet. I mean, money is distribution technology, and most problems on Earth are distribution problems, not scarcity problems. So if we're making smarter money, then we should really dream big about solving a lot of problems that that are around right now. And it's going to sink beneath the hood, I think, of what most people are actually looking at. But as we tie more and more stuff on chain, I think we can probably supercharge how distribution actually works.
Yeah, good, nice. So yeah, it was so nice reconnecting again after so many years. So it's really cool. I'll make sure that I, you know, get into one of your rooms about nothing. I'll keep an eye on that for sure. And yeah, so I'll leave the link to the slideshow where you mention out of those you said 33 packets or
32. Last I
32.
checked.
So what do you keep in all those 32 pockets? I'll share the link so people can check it out. Now I'm curious. I have to check it out as well myself. But yeah, it was really nice conversation. Thanks a lot for your time. And yeah, hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Okay.